Hi, fourth grade. Welcome back to our six syllable types phonics series. Today we're going to be learning about the fifth syllable type, R controlled syllables. So let's dig in and talk about what that means and how it affects our spelling. So, R controlled is basically when R is behind a vowel and it takes over the vowel and it changes that sound. So, think about our vowel sounds. We have A, E, I, O, and U. And anytime there's an R right after that vowel sound, it's going to change the way the vowel sounds. We know that our vowels mostly always have two sounds when they're by themselves, short and long. That like A says a and short A and long A says a. When we've learned closed and open syllable types earlier in the year, we learned a little more about those short and long vowel sounds. However, now that we're learning about the R controlled, when you see R right after a vowel, it does change the way it sounds. So let's talk about that. Behind me, I've written all of our vowel sounds. So when I put an R, let's talk about how that makes it, how it changes the sound. So when I add an R after the A, it turns it into R. We had the A sound, now it turns into R. When I add an R after the O, it changes it to OR. When I add R after I, the vowel I, it changes it to It's controlling it. When I add an R after the E, it changes it to again. You're going to notice a pattern here. And when I add an R after the U, it changes it to Okay, so what did you notice about those R-controlled sounds? R, or, and All three of these vowels all make the same sound. They're all spelled differently, three different vowels, but make the same sound. So I want to help you with that for a second, and let's talk about our mouth when we're saying this sound. This is going to affect the way that we spell it because it's going to help us know which one we're going to spell with. So let's start off with AR right here, okay? So looking at this mouth, R, how our mouth moves when we're saying this sound, okay? That's interesting. It's a different way to look at it of how our mouth is formed, R. Okay, notice how it starts off a little bit slightly closed and it opens up a little bit. Looking at this, or, and notice what the mouth does here, or. And it kind of is more of an O-shaped mouth right there. And then our last one, all three sounds, all three vowels, they all sound the same when they're R-controlled. And Our mouth is the same. And I kind of noticed the teeth right here. The teeth are blocking some of the air from coming out. So that's just a little extra to help us think about when we're spelling some words. So let's dig into some words, some examples, and let's talk about how are we going to decide which R-controlled vowel it is, especially with these three that all make the same sound. So right here I'm going to kind of do a little line connecting those because all three of those make the same sound. They all say Of course, these two are a little easier, but they're all rule breakers. And we know with when we're learning letters and sounds and relationships with letters and sounds that there's always rule breakers out there. And so it's good to go and talk about some of them and that they are possible. So let's look at this first word. Let's look at sparkler. So I'm going to be choosing some multisyllabic, more than one syllable words to help us as we're spelling, because most likely you're going to be spelling a lot of multisyllabic words. So let's talk about sparkler. So if I want to talk about maybe my family at the 4th of July, we like to use sparklers, those little things that have the little, sparkler, the little flames coming off the edge, and they're really pretty and they're fun to use. So sparkler, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop out or segment my syllables. Sparkler. And this can be something I use at first and gradually don't do anymore. I know we've talked about this, is, do my syllable lines, syllaboards, whichever way. Sparkler, because I know I have two syllables, two lines. That just helps me to start. But let's talk about just the first syllable. So I'm going to go syllable by syllable. Spark. Okay, so I'm going to stretch through my sounds. Sp. And I hear the blend. S-P. Sp. R. Okay, well that's an easy one because I hear R. I hear that R-controlled AR sound. So I know it's going to be AR. That's the only one that makes that sound. Spark. Okay. Lur, sparkler, there's an L, but now I hear okay, so I know that all three of these all say every single one of these R controlled vowels make the same sound. So what I'm going to do here is I can try different ones. A lot of you might already know which one this is because it's pretty common at the end to be this R controlled vowel, but I can try the different ones and see which one looks right. But since I do know this one already, I'm going to go ahead and do ER. But if I wasn't sure, I could always just play around with my letters, and I could try IR, because that says that does say sparkler, but it doesn't look right. I could try UR, it says sparkler, but it doesn't look right. So now I'm going to try ER. And I know that one's correct. ER is most common at the end of a word anyways. And so I kind of already knew that one. So here we go. I stretched out and I spelled sparkler. I did syllable by syllable, and then within the syllables, I stretched through my sounds and listened to what R controlled vowel I heard. Okay, let's do one that's a little bit harder. Let's do, this is the grade that you first come when you come to school here. Well, not the youngest grade, but it's in the first floor, and starts with a K, kindergarten. So let's do that one, kindergarten. So first I'm going to chop out my syllables, and then we're going to stretch through it. Okay, here we go. Kindergarten. Kindergarten. That's a big one, but I want to make sure I'm taking my time thinking about what I hear inside of each syllable. Kindergarten. Kindergarten. 4 syllables, multisyllabic. Okay. Kin. K. I. N. Kin. K. I. N. Look, it's a closed syllable, short vowel right there. Kinder. D. D. Okay, I hear the D. Now I hear the sound again. And look, all 3 of these make the sound. So again, I can try the different ones, but also if you've noticed a little bit of a pattern, sparkler, ER was at the end of that syllable, at the end of the word, end of the syllable. So I'm noticing right here, I hear this is my end of my syllable for der. So I'm going to go ahead and try ER just because it is at the end of that syllable. And I'm noticing a little pattern with that. Kinder, it looks right. Let's keep going. Gar, g, r, g, r. Okay, I hear G. Oh, and look, it's R controlled AR. Gar, 10, t, n. Closed syllable, T-E-N. Kindergarten. Kindergarten. So I'm going to make sure that I always go back and reread what I spelled to make sure I didn't forget any syllables or any letters by themselves. Kindergarten. Kindergarten. Now, when I say the word kindergarten, do you notice how kindergarten, you usually hear like the D at the end? If I wrote it like that, I would most likely, it would look a little odd. It wouldn't look right. And if I'm really thinking about each sound that I actually hear when I'm stretching through it, I do hear the T sound. So that gets a little tricky because sometimes when we speak and when we say certain things, it sounds a little run together or a little Texas accent and it sounds different. So I need to make sure I'm still stretching through every sound when I'm spelling. Okay, kindergarten. Let's do one more. This time I want you to do it with me. So you can get a whiteboard if you have one of those on your desk, a piece of paper, whatever you have. I want to work through this one together. Okay, this one is a little tricky. So here we go. We're going to do the word advisor. So an advisor is someone that might help you with something. They might, an advisor for like college might help you know like what path you want to take in college, what classes to take. So let's do the word advisor. That's something that is an everyday thing. So let's do that word. Okay, so advisor. Chop it out. Here we go. Advisor. Advisor. 3 syllables. Advisor. Advisor. Okay, even though it's 3 syllables, this one's a little tricky. So for advisor, I hear Okay, we've learned this a while back. It's been a minute, but the schwa sound. Let's talk about that for a second. When a vowel flexes and says I or it makes these 2 sounds, or I. That is a vowel making the schwa sound, okay? So advisor, I hear a schwa sound. So I know it probably isn't the letter U. It sounds like the letter U, but it's actually the vowel flexing to sound like that. So it's actually an A right here. D, D, vi, v, I. And since I hear that in its own syllable, automatically I'm like, oh, that's an open syllable, long vowel in the syllable. Vi, v, I, v, I, zer, z. Okay, if you remember, this has been a little bit, but if you remember that S can make two sounds, it can say S or Z. So advisor sounds like a Z, but it's really an S. Z-er. Oh, another one. Or. All three say So I'm going to play around with my letters, but also notice the position that this is in the syllable. I've noticed a lot of them, ER has been at the end. Let's try it. Let's see. Ooh, does that look right? That doesn't look right. Let's try another vowel, another R-controlled vowel that says the sound. What about this one? Advisor? No, you know what that looks like right here? Sir. And that says soft S. That's just making the S sound. No. Okay, let's try another one. Advisor. Let's try OR. Advisor. Or let's try UR. No, that doesn't look right either. Okay, so this one's a little tricky. None of the ones that say our sound, are looking right for us. Could it be possible that this could be a rule breaker and it could be one of the other R-controlled vowels? It could be. This one actually is spelled like this, advisor. Now, this sounds like is what it's making the sound of. I'm putting in little sound brackets here. It sounds like but it's actually an OR. Advisor? We don't say advisor. We say advisor. So again, this is something to remember. Not always will my sounds and letters follow the rules. So that's important. If I know that these combinations of letters can make these sounds, then I can try the different ones. And then when I reread it and I do my syllable by syllable and look at what's inside of my syllables, I can just double check that. So as you're spelling this week and you're working through your spelling, I want you to think about those things when you're chopping out your syllables and thinking about the sounds in each syllable.